All right, hello class. So welcome, and appear to be up and running today. Now, what I want to do today is introduce Dante's Inferno, open up some of the issues and uh, questions that we'll be confronting with that. And I am going to open up an activity that's going to essentially approximate what the in-class writing would have done. So my lecture probably today will be around 20 minutes, just looking at the first three cantos of the poem. If you have Dante's Inferno open, that certainly would be good, because I'm going to go through some specific elements of that. Okay, so get started here. Okay, so the poem setting is it starts in a forest, and the date that it starts is significant. So it starts on March 24th, 1300, and the day is Maundy Thursday, which actually is today. And this is shortly before dawn of Good Friday. So the date is significant in Christian tradition. The date for Easter, of course, was really important. The entire Christian calendar was based on that, and so it's the day Christ is crucified. He's put in the tomb, and after 3 days, he disappears. He ascends to heaven at that point. Now, there is a theologically more enriched story than what we get in the Bible that is part of Christian tradition and mythology, and that is in terms of what happens during the 3 days. What does it mean for Jesus to die for 3 days and then rise to heaven? So what happens during that time? And the medieval belief is, and somewhat late classical too, was that this is when the harrowing of hell occurs. And the harrowing of hell is when Jesus, during that time that he dies, he goes down to the underworld and gathers up all of the souls that he's going to take with him to heaven. So the Christian belief being that no one could gain entrance to heaven until Jesus takes on all of those sins. Like, he dies for the sins of everybody, and then everybody after that can access heaven through Jesus. But the theological question was, what happens to the people before that? So he descends into hell, gathers up those souls, and ascends to heaven. There were Old English poems about this, and it was kind of romanticized as a sort of military conquest and invasion, or a hostage rescue operation, if you will. But that's theologically what's going on. So in terms of Dante, you have this this man in the middle age of his life, the narrator being Dante himself. So you have Dante the poet, Dante the character, and he is wandering in these woods on dawn before Good Friday. He's making his own spiritual journey. So midway through the journey of life, and he's actually 35. He's not 40. The biblical lifespan was thought to be 70. This is from Psalm 89, and so he's dispirited. He's lost. He's said to be astray from the straight way of salvation. So he's fallen into kind of despair. Okay, so he's trying to find his way out. The most direct path out of this forest is up a small mountain, and it is blocked by three different creatures, three beasts, and he can't get past them. There's no way around them. So there is a leopard, a lion, and a wolf. This is a biblical allusion to Jeremiah 5.6, and they're thought to symbolize the three kinds of sin an unrepentant soul brings with them. And these are also the three major divisions of hell that, and this kind of prefigures Dante's journey. So what are they? There's a debate about that, but they are thought to be incontinence, violence, and fraud. Now, what the term means, incontinence means like a lack of moderation or self-control. So, for example, gluttony would be a lack of self-control, as would lust. So the inability. So these are 3 degrees of sin, and they kind of go up in severity. Whereas, so the inability to control yourself, your urges, for sex, for food, for wealth, all like those things are a kind of loss of control. Doesn't really always directly harm someone else. It can, but violence is worse. So violence is, when you're harming someone else. But there's a distinction in sin made between the violence as a function of a kind of unbridled, uncontrolled anger, and deception. So deception is the worst kind. These are the worst kinds of sin: fraud, malice, where someone knows that something is wrong, they plan it out beforehand, and they do it anyway. So they betray people, they betray friends, or they betray their countrymen, and or their king. And so, those are the worst kinds of sin, and that's going to be the worst part of hell as well. So Canto 1, and a canto, by the way, is it's a song. These are like the chapters of Dante's Inferno. And so those 3 beasts and what they represent are going to mirror what this journey through hell is going to be like. So these beasts, this sin drives him back. It drives him back to this lower place. So it keeps him from ascending the mountain, which is metaphorical for his spiritual journey. His journey to heaven is now blocked. And in that lower place, the sun is silent. And again, hell is thought to be the absence of God. So the light of God does not reach there. And so that again is what this represents. Okay, so he's rescued, though. He's rescued by a figure who announces he was born sub Julio, meaning in the time of Julius Caesar, lived under Augustus. And it is Virgil, author of the Aeneid, so the text that we just read. And Dante is very happy to see him. And let me give you a line here. Sorry, I actually jumped to Canto 2 there. Okay, so here's what Virgil says to him. He says, "Sub Julio was I born, though it was late, lived in Rome under good Augustus during the time of false and lying gods." So that's going to be an important theme, that he lives at a time during these false gods. So before Christ, he's a pagan, and because of that, because he's a good person, he doesn't. He's saved from kind of the worst parts of hell, but he doesn't get access to heaven either. So he's in this kind of liminal space, and we're going to see more about that as it goes forward. So he talks about being a poet who wrote about the son of Anchises, who is Aeneas, and Dante comes back. "Now art thou that Virgilius, that fountain which spread abroad so wide a river of speech." I made response to him with a bashful forehead. "Oh, of the other poets of honor and light, avail me the long study and great love." So Virgil is really his hero, and that's what he's expressing to him. You're my master," he says. "Thou art my master, my author thou. Thou art alone the one from whom I took the beautiful style that has done honor to me." So there's two things going on here. I mean, in terms of plot, Dante is, establishing a guide figure. That this is, if we think about structuralism and mythology, for someone to have a mentor, that's a very common approach and common method. But also poetically, he's linking himself into a tradition that he is a great poet. Dante himself is a great poet who models himself after Virgil and continues that tradition, much in the same way that Virgil continued the tradition of Homer. So Dante then he points out that his way is blocked, and Virgil tells him that we're going to take another road. "If from this savage place thou wouldst escape, because this beast at which thou criest out suffers not anyone to pass her, but so doth harass him." So the idea here is that he can't get through the sin, he can't overcome the sin directly. He's got to go on a different kind of journey, and so he's going to be taken through hell to get his way out, and that's where he's going to have to go. So he agrees. Virgil says, "Because that emperor who reigns above, in that I was rebellious to his law, wills that thou through me none come into his city. He governs everywhere, and there he reigns. There is his city and his lofty throne. Oh, happy he whom thereto he elects. And I to him, poet, I entreat thee, by the same God thou didst never know, so that I may escape this woe and worse. Thou wouldst conduct me where thou hast said, that I may see the portal of St. Peter, and thou makest so disconsolate." Okay, then he moves and he follows him. So they have to find their way through hell, purgatory, and then they can reach paradise. Now Virgil won't be able to go with him to paradise, and this, the Inferno, is the first of three poems. We're just reading Inferno, but there's purgatory and paradise, Purgatorio, Paradiso, and those would come after this. Okay, so then we get to Canto 2, and this takes place on the evening of Good Friday, and this is where Dante is trying to gather his wits, kind of gather his strength. He hesitates, and Virgil, to try to build him up, tells him why he was sent. He was sent by Beatrice. Beatrice is a symbol of divine love in Dante, and she is the actual historical Beatrice was the great love of Dante's life. He didn't end up marrying her; someone else did, but and she died fairly young. But she always was, like, poetically the symbol for him of love, of purity, of divinity. And so her soul is essentially uh, who's going to intercede on his behalf. So she beseeches the Virgin Mary and Saint Lucia. Virgin Mary is a symbol of compassion, and Saint Lucia is a symbol of grace. And things happen in like 3 is a significant number. I mean, obviously 3 represents the Trinity, but there are these 3 intercessors on his behalf: the Beatrice, the Virgin Mary, Saint Lucia. There are those 3 sections of hell that we talked about. So the number 3 keeps appearing over and over. Then there's, of course, hell, purgatory, heaven. So it's just a kind of repeating number. Okay, so this, hearing that it's Beatrice, this kind of builds him up and prepares him for this journey. Now, Canto 3 is what's called the vestibule of hell. And this is where he is approaching the 9 circles of hell, but he's not there yet. So he passes through the gate, and on the gate there's an inscription. It says, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." That's a very common literary trope. You see that in other texts. And in this space, Dante hears screams of the uncommitted. They're the souls of people who took no sides, opportunists who were neither good nor evil, but instead were concerned for themselves. Dante recognizes some figures there, and this is going to be a common thing for Dante. He's going to put people from his moment in history in different parts of hell, sort of to settle some scores. So there's a pope there, Pope Celestine V, and who was much maligned for not being a very good pope, for being somewhat cowardly. And there's also some outcasts who took no side in the rebellion of the angels. They are unclassified souls. They're neither in hell nor out of it, but they reside on the shores of Acheron. Now, this is where Dante mixes Christian and classical theology. The Dante's Inferno, the geography of hell, is all very much influenced by Book 6 of the Aeneid. And so this is one of the rivers in the underworld. And these souls, they have regret for never taking a side. They just kind of wander around in this mist. They're chased by wasps and hornets who continually pursue them. They're maggots and worms. So it's this really kind of disgusting image. And all of that symbolizes their guilty conscience, the sting of the guilt, the repugnance of sin, and so on. So Dante and Virgil, they pass this, and they approach a ferry. The ferry is guided by a familiar figure, Charon, who recognizes immediately that Dante's alive, and he doesn't want to take him across. It's against the rules. But the rules of God are gonna kind of supersede the rules of the underworld, and Charon is forced to take him across. So So Virgil forces him to do that, but only on the authority of the Virgin Mary is he able to do that. Okay. Now Dante is on this journey on divine ground. So Karen says, "It is so willed there where is power to do that which is willed." So he's basically saying, I have to do this because it's a divine journey. Okay, so on their way, the souls entering Charon's boat contrast with the joyful singing of souls arriving by ferry in purgatory. So this is sort of a kind of an area of transit where souls are transferred. Some souls are going to purgatory, some are going to hell. Purgatory, it's a step towards heaven in this Christian theology. So it is a joyful place to be. It's where these souls are purified on their way to heaven. So there's a kind of contrast there. Now, the passage across that is not fully described because Dante faints and he wakes up on the other side. So poetically, the action moves us from he's on the journey and then the journey's over because he faints, and he's our narrator. So without his experiences, we don't see what happens. So him fainting like this, being overwhelmed by what he's seeing, it prefigures what needs to happen for him on this journey. He needs to build up his strength. He's going to see much worse things than what he saw here. So Virgil's going to have to really build him up. So that's Canto 1 through 3. And the activity that I have in mind for us that I'm going to put on Canvas today, and we'll work on over the next couple weeks, is going to involve you choosing and describing one of the circles of hell. So there's the first circle is limbo, and then lust, gluttony, greed, wrath, heresy, violence, and fraud, and then treachery. Treachery is the last one. So you're going to be choosing one of those, and we can have multiple people choose the same one. That's fine, and then you're going to read in more detail about that. And so the book is organized in this way. So Canto 4 is limbo, Canto 5 is lust. So some of them are just one, and then some of the later sins stretch over multiple cantos, but they nonetheless are circles within the text. So my plan for this, it is a long work. My plan is that you read Cantos 1 through 3 in full. That's material that will be on the test, and then you are going to explore in detail one of these circles, and then that one that you chose, you'll be able to use as the basis for an essay question on that next exam. So I will, in Canvas, in my announcement, I'll say more about all this. I'll have this recording posted, and then just some reminders about our calendar and things. So Matthew, Michael, thank you for attending today. The rest of the class will see this as a recording. I'm going to stop the recording now. If you have any questions or anything, let me know, and I will stick around for a few minutes on that.